Hello everyone. Welcome back to Owoh's Corner, my own little corner of art. And in this stream, I'm going to be working a bit more on this animation. I sort of stopped where I left off, and I haven't really touched it in a bit. Now, I did do some timing, so I'm happy about that, but I do want to take more time working on this. So, this is in fact a fighting animation, and I just want to review it real quick. So I'll just take this looping tool. Hmm. There's still some more timing I have to play with, but for the most part, I have the general idea of how I want the animation to go. Let's see here. Which frame is this one? Okay, so that's the front. That's the enemy. I really should have named these. That's one of the bad habits I fall into as an animator, is sometimes I'll forget to name my layers, because I'll have all these layers like layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, and then I won't know where things are. Damn, what was this character's name again? Uh, so this character is a scientist. Dang, I forgot her name. Oh yeah, I remember now. So I did finally figure out what I wanted for the antagonist. And so if the seven sages are the seven things God hates, then I'm thinking their enemies are going to be based off of the 10 plagues of Egypt. And they're definitely going to be more, hmm, I would say, more technologically based, whereas the main characters are more mystic. Because that's one of the things when it comes to having what's the proper word? When it comes to having a science fantasy, what usually ends up happening is there's usually not an even 50-50 split. I think only Shadowrun really handles the concept the best, where there's like, in a world where both technology and magic exist, usually you can't have replaced limbs because your body is what enables you to have access to the magic. No, I think actually, yeah, that's probably a good sign. If I actually let me turn on my onion skin, and essentially I'm going to see where this is, and I'm going to like adjust it a little bit. Now I am going to make some slight adjustments. Like I can move the leg up a little bit. going to erase this. And I'm going to erase this a little bit more. Now what I can do with the arm is actually bring it up a bit more. Just sort of have it like this. Now what I'm doing is I'm essentially using a skeleton for my character model. There's a lot of gesture drawing that goes into animation because you have to first get the rough idea. You have to get the rough impression of what characters are going to be doing and how they're going to be moving before you actually add more details. So when it comes to animators, usually what tends to happen is most animators I've seen on YouTube is they don't really draw out their gesturing. They usually do all of their gesturing off screen, off stream, and then they'll just what they do stream is usually the cleanup. There are some that I've seen that do it, but for the most part, it's more aesthetically pleasing for the content to do all the gesturing first, do all the in betweening first, and then when you're streaming, that's when you sort of add the extra detail. Also, it's a big thing of preference of what people prefer to do, especially when it comes to in betweening. Some people like to animate one character's entire range of motion, then they move on to the next character. But sometimes, especially for action sequences, you sort of have to move between your characters and animate them along the way. Like you may animate one character in one frame, then you may switch to another character because they may have an impact frame or they may have a pivotal moment in their animation that is timed slightly before or slightly after or is in response to the actions of another character. So that's when you have to jump around. And that's what I'm doing for this sequence because the enemy is charging up an attack and this character sort of sees it. She looks at her ally, sees it, and then she jumps in the way. But in order to give the animation the impression that it's more lively, you can't have characters being blank or unresponsive. So while this character sees the attack coming and jumps in the way, this other character, she also notices it and she starts preparing to defend herself. And that's how you have the more fluid animations. That's how you give your animations more fluidity. So while her teammate is coming in to defend her, she's actually getting ready to defend herself. And that sort of gives a more cinematic and dynamic animating and story style. And that's what I wanted to do because I had made a poll of like, what kind of animation should I do and what do I need to do as an animator? And the poll stated like work on more dynamic animations. And so that's what I'm doing. And this I would consider is a dynamic animation because I'm focusing on the range of motion for my characters. Now, I do in fact have to use my onion skin again just because I want to make sure that I'm getting it right. Her lower body is going to be moving back, and sort of her legs are going to take on this sort of weakened or bracing stance for the attack. And sometimes what I learn, and this is just drawing in general, sometimes it's actually easier to draw the hands first and then sort of draw where the body connects. And like I said, I'm just doing a lot of gesture drawing. And so she's sort of holding her arms up, bracing for the attack. And I may have to actually in between it a little bit. And then this is where I'm going to switch between this layer and I'm actually going to turn my onion skin back on. Now what I am going to have to do is lock this frame so that seeing the onion skin of two different characters does not warp my perception. So right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw where the feet are. Hmm. I think my neighbors are outside. They're probably doing something. I'm not quite sure. So that's where the first foot is, and then really what I care about is sort of where the hands are gonna be, because I can always add a frame and sort of in between it. So that's what the first hand is, and this is where the second hand is going to be. Hmm. And like I said, I'm just doing some more of this gesture drawing to build an impression of the body, because I can always go back and add more detail. It's always good to build an impression for yourself because there's actually a lot of in betweens as well as just a lot of building in general that goes into animation. And there's always going to be some sort of like wonky bits or parts that don't look as aesthetically pleasing as you want them to be. So you sort of have to create an impression of what it is you want the character to express. Like right here, I'm going to have to add 2 more frames. Just so it can blend more seamlessly. And I can always loop it just so I can see how it looks. Now, again, that's why timing charts are so important. I'm doing this all freehand, but usually, at least what I've learned from researching the industry, is animators will use timing charts so that they can plot out how long a motion of animation is meant to take. And it can be anywhere from a whole second to a half a second to even several seconds long. Or even sometimes people even make timing charts for like whole minutes of animation. But I will say that, at least from what I've recorded, when it comes to fighting animations or more action intensive animations, that's when timing charts sort of go out the window. And so what they'll do is they'll just freehand a fight sequence. Or if they do include a timing chart, it's more so for pivotal moments within the fight sequence. Like something, like if you want it to linger on a frame for a few extra seconds or a few extra frames per minute, or if there's something that the cinematography wants you to pay attention to, like say there's like a sleight of hand moment or the charge up of an attack, that's when they include timing charts so that the viewer can slow down. It gives a mechanical way for the viewer to slow down and sort of pay close attention rather than just have a bunch of empty noise. I will be right back. I am back. I had to handle something, so it was just real quick. I was talking to somebody, a family member. I don't really share all of my familial business on stream. I usually keep that ambiguous. Now, for this frame, I think that just one frame in between is going to be sufficient. And I'm going to use the method I've used before, which is drawing the in between. Basically, how my mind views it is there is a imaginary character that exists in between frame to frame. And it exists in between the 2 points of where one frame is from another. And so my job as the in-betweener is I have to first I visualize that figure that lies in between, and then I capture it in a physical manner. Hmm. Now, despite being able to see between frames, I still, in fact, try to jump between them manually just so I can get a better impression mentally of how the figure is meant to move from one frame to the other. But this is just a gesture, a bit of a freehand. It's not meant to be as detailed. And sort of that's what animators have to do in order to build an impression so they can go back over and add more detail. Now, what I do want to do is play this over because I'm working at 24 frames per second. So, what I'm going to have to do is start spacing out the animation more. Okay, so from what I'm seeing, how I'm perceiving it is so up to here is good. Let me actually loop it. So this like half second, er, actually technically it's a little over half a second. Like this right here is good. My issue is coming from, I want to say about right here. Well, no, because it actually bleeds into the previous motion a little bit. Dang, where is it? And so I do feel like maybe if I actually turn this off. Like this should have been longer. But this should have been a quicker motion. So I think what I can do is convert these to threes. I'm going to convert this one to a three as well. Now I can play back the animation. But you see, this is the tedious part of animation I love so much is I just love making sure that everything is cohesive. Maybe I should have made this a fourth instead. So typically in animation, most things are animated between ones and threes, but sometimes you do animate on a fourth for when you want something to linger a bit longer. Let me. Because I think this frame needs to be longer. And this needs to be shorter. So what if I did this, and then I did this. Now when it comes to this hand movement, I think this should have been shorter. Now let's see the whole motion unfold. Now when I'm working over here, it does feel like I should have slowed this down. But what I want to do is add one more frame. And so this is going to end up being the bracing motion, just basically like the in between. So for this model, she's going to stand up properly, whereas the model behind her is sort of going to brace itself. Because what I'm trying to do is more so capture the, I guess you could say, the psychological elements of a fight sequence. It's like when something is flying in your face, and even though you have protective glasses or eyewear on, you still sort of flinch or just jerk back because it's instinctual. Like it's instinctual to brace yourself. So that's pretty much what I'm trying to get across in this animation. think something's wrong with the head, but I'm gonna leave it alone for now because I'm mainly worried about getting the body right. No, I am gonna have to add frames just because in animation you gotta have wiggle room to work with. Insert frame. Insert frame. And then I'm going to insert frame right here. Now I may in fact have to erase this a little bit. And I may have to reposition the head a little bit, but for now, that's decent enough. Hmm. Sometimes you do have to hide your other frames. Yeah, I think this frame needs to linger more. Now, what I can do is sort of give it a slow ease effect so that it's not just clipping, but rather there's a slow progression for the body. I may be unable to use my onion skin. But I guess that's partially because of how messy my lines are. Adobe Animate can be kind of finicky in the sense that when you're zoomed out, your lines look messier. Well, your lines look cleaner than they actually are. But then when you zoom in, that's where you have all of your, I wouldn't necessarily say mess ups, but the lines can be a bit messier than they appear. Let's see here. Let me turn off the onion skin for a minute. And then I'll erase this to sort of clean it up. Wrong frame. It was meant to be on this one. I'm actually making some pretty good time. I'm about an hour in. I do have to go to the store in maybe the next 30, maybe 45 minutes. So I will finish up, I want to say maybe 2 or 3 more frames, and then I'll log off. This is actually kind of new for me, streaming on a Saturday. I wanted to stream Friday, but I had some business to take care of. And I didn't really have the chance to stream because I wasn't in the right headspace. I won't go into the detail, but I'm doing much better today. The one reason, even though my lines look cleaner, the one reason why I don't really animate zoomed in often is because if I do only animate zoomed in, then a lot of my stuff is going to become warped. Because, like, zoomed in, it looks cleaner. And that's actually a really good thing because it's going to help me when it comes to the next phase of my animation. Now, I think this character in the front may need some more refining. Let's see here. Now, this one I'm actually gonna have to think about because after this sequence, it's then going to jump to a camera pan, and that's when the third character is going to sort of come in and assist the girls in their fighting. But it's actually coming along quite nicely, and I like how I've been working on this. It's pretty good. Actually, I don't think I paid attention to where he's targeting. I sort of just went a bit too freehand with it. All right, I gotta go. Um, I gotta go. I think I made some good progress, but I'll definitely work on it some more off stream, and I'll come back probably either Monday or Tuesday and stream again. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share even, and I'll see you guys in my next video or stream. Bye.